Welcome back to a bumper aviation news recap where the sole focus is on Delta, beginning with a change flagged to their operation by aeroroutes.com involving the A350, with the US carrier confirming it'll cease operations with the high-capacity configured Airbus widebody able to seat 339 passengers, a figure that is higher than that of its other A350 jets. Subject to change, Delta will end the A350-900's operations in this configuration on October 25, just in time for the end of the northern summer schedule as we move into the northern winter schedule. The final flight to Amsterdam on October 25 represents a 6-day pushback. Additionally, the 339-seater jet will operate between Atlanta and Lima and also towards Rome and Santiago. A move to axe flying with this configuration has been in the airline's plan. It remained a matter of how quickly Delta could actually move ahead with the reconfiguration without hindering its day-to-day operation and or financial position. Delta's reliance on the Airbus A350 has grown through the years and is expected to continue increasing in due course, but its reason for having such a highly densely configured A350 is not due to its own choices for seat layout, but rather due to acquisition efforts. For Delta, the A350s come from LATAM. Many of the airline's Airbus A350s were acquired from this major international airline as part of plans to evolve their wide-body flying. Airlines, if the opportunity arises, will look to take advantage of the misfortunes of another customer, and if the possibility presents itself, acquire aircraft that are still relatively new for a more immediate deployment on their network. By moving ahead with this strategy, such as this carrier's, Delta can add capacity to its network in the more short term, instead of strictly waiting for planes to come from Airbus, which have only been met by delays. LATAM's decision to axe the A350, which I will get into at the beginning of the pandemic, was the sole reason for the opportunity that presented itself. Given that these A350s were delivered though to LATAM, there was a product mismatch, something that Delta knew would need remediating in due course. The reconfiguration on the A350 has been a priority to align the aircraft closer to the product that is present throughout its fleet and freshly delivered jets from the manufacturer. This something now to be initiated. Delta's acquisition of LATAM's A350 product was all driven by the Latin American carrier's move to axe the product, but why did they remove the jet? Well, much of this was driven by the financial strain that we saw in the business as it underwent restructuring, all the while dealing with a COVID-19 pandemic. When the company entered Chapter 11 bankruptcy in mid-2020, a decision was made to try and reduce and therefore naturally streamline operations, with the belief that simplicity would be a key thing moving forward. Despite being new and fresh, the A350 fleet was put on the chopping block with a focus on the development instead of Boeing models for future flying and complementing existing aircraft in the operation. Delta comes into the equation thanks to the previous interest in LATAM, which had resulted in the planned acquisition of a stake and therefore takeover of some A350s. In the end though, Delta would take on A350s to elevate its business, the final reconfiguration coming of the remaining units and therefore closing a chapter of the airline utilizing these jets as they previously were known. And over to the next story, where Delta has confirmed mass route changes across its winter schedule in a bid to react to economic conditions. The changes that are coming into effect for the peak winter months of January and February 2026 will see the primary focus across New York area hubs, and as a result, LaGuardia and John F. Kennedy will be the focal point for a limiting of frequencies expected during the colder months of the year. At its peak, we'll see a 16% flying reduction from JFK and an even larger 19% from LaGuardia. These cuts are not isolated. This is just when the peak axings will take place. It's actually expected in the months leading up, and even after February, there will still be network reductions. The move sees the winter schedule cut as air travel continues to cool in overall demand, with those growing economic concerns becoming more prominent and preventing people from flying as they once did. You'd argue that much of the economic uncertainty rests on the recent administration change, with President Donald Trump's return to office. The subsequent result of this has seen much emphasis placed on the impact of tariffs, inflation, and unemployment, these according to analysts. Therefore, Delta is reacting and redeploying its capacity taken from airports in the New York area elsewhere. A move that isn't uncommon as travel, especially on a domestic front, can soften, but airlines are seeing this softening on a larger scale and it is forcing them to react. In the past, airlines would reduce schedules and risk losing valuable slots. There is one major change driven by the Federal Aviation Administration to the way slots are owned, and this has given Delta a little bit of respite. Now JFK and LaGuardia through to the summer of 2026 will see the elimination of a regulation that previously saw airlines lose slots when reducing their flying. This will not happen, and it means that the decisions undertaken by Delta, which are viewed as critical, will not come back to bite them when ultimately you'd imagine the flight schedule will be restored to somewhat normality for the summer 2026 season, permitting any further last-minute adjustments. Additionally, Delta has not committed to, say, axe routes or suspend flying to specific markets for an extended period in that New York area. Of these capacity reductions, instead it is strictly lowering the amount of flights that will be offered to specific locations. Even despite this, there are natural positive repercussions that would not always be deemed as the most positive on customers who would lose out on the maybe sheer scale of connectivity options they once had. And this could also see other flights increase in their overall price point. That'll conclude today's updates on Delta. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. Take care, be safe, and I'll see you tomorrow for your next industry recap.